Warning. Warning. You are about to enter the propaganda
That's
report
right.
with Brad Binkley.
That's right. You have entered the propaganda report. And I am Brad Binkley, your host. You're going to get much better video quality here shortly. Don't worry. 3 million Epstein files or so were recently released in the past week, and yet people are still overlooking the most important ones that are within the files, ones that I've been reporting on for nearly 10 years now at this point, ones that helped us get kicked off of WSB, ones that got my websites taken down multiple times because I shared them, files that are within these files that have been released, and yet they've been public for many, many years, and they have not to be spoken of. The files that they do not want you paying attention to, files that reveal what Epstein was doing with all the scientists in his dark brain pursuit, and the names of the people that should be subpoenaed because they helped him get a sweetheart deal proven by court documented records, 5 specifically individually named people amongst these 3 million documents. Now, I've talked about this many, many times over the years, including on shows within the past 6 months, and I spoke about this and much, much more back in September with Stephen, the biblical hitman, on a fantastic show that we did. He does a great show. You should check him out, The Biblical Hitman. And he's agreed to let me restream the episode that we did in light of the new information that has come out and some of this stuff finally getting focused on. It's probably a good time to bring back this show so that you guys can hear the discussion that's going to focus on some of the information in the files that many people aren't talking about right now. And they should be talking about because it involves people who are still in positions of power, connected to the military, connected to the psychological industrial complex. Psychological, what would that be called? The military industrial complex, the psychological industrial complex, whatever. So I am going to restream that show. And if you want to get like a 30-minute brief summary of these individually named people, go to my X account, Twitter, at Freedom Act Radio is the handle, and there's a video pinned to the top of my page called The Most Important Epstein File that reveals who must be subpoenaed. It's about a 23-minute video, and it covers very quickly some of the stuff that we touch on in this episode. But with that said, go subscribe at Freedom Act Radio, youtube.com/Brad Binkley, Propaganda Report on Rumble, Freedom Act Radio again. You want to get whatever this is with Sam Tripoli, me, and Austin Picard, patreon.com/Propaganda Report, propreport.locals.com. Share the show, support the show with a 5-star review, and enjoy the files that people aren't talking about that Stephen and I discussed on The Biblical Hitman a few months ago. You guys have a fantastic rest of y'all's day.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to The Biblical Hitman. It's your host, Steven. My other 2 co-hosts are not with us this episode, but joining us is Brad Binkley. He's the host of the Propaganda Report. And if you want to show any support for us and for his platform as well, please hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment down below about the things that we are going to get into, that we cover. And a big part of this show is not only biblical narrative stuff, Nephilim, I mean, all the entities and all that, but we do cover news and reports and all this. It's a big part of our show, but you can also support us on audio platforms as well, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. With all that said, brother, thank you for joining the show. Glad to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited. It was cool to get together at Bro Grove down there, and I want to tell people up front, I don't usually wear cartoonishly big headphones. I just I left mine somewhere else, and I had to find these game headphones. So I look like a clown. Now I'm ready to go.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Dude, you know, it's so funny. I've been, this week has been a busy week collabing with a bunch of the people that was at Bro Grove. Awesome event. Shout out to NDS. I know some of the people listening, they're like, oh, NDS, whatever. Listen, guys, it was an awesome event. It was a lot of fun. Sam Tripoli was there. A lot of awesome content creators there, just like yourself. We had Austin Picard on. We had Donut on. We've got you on. I mean, it's a lot of fun collaborating with you guys because we're all really at the end of the day like-minded people, and it was such a comfortable feeling. Just being around other people that think the same, right? Or view our perspectives are very similar.
100% agree. They put on a great event. I've done a couple of events this year, and getting out from behind the screen and going to meet up in person, it's just a whole different energy. It brings it to another level that you just can't get through a screen. So I try to do as many of those events as I can when they come up because I just think it's great to connect in person.
Yeah, man. And I love collabing with other content creators, other hosts of different shows, because really at the end of the day, we bring on other people on our platforms. We know a little about a lot, and it's just an awesome, it's like trading Pokemon cards back in the day, but except you don't lose anything. It's just all in benefit. So real quick, man, for the audience that's not familiar with you, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your show.
I'm Brad Binkley. I host the Propaganda Report podcast. I deconstruct propaganda. I've been doing it. I used to be on WSB years and years ago. Then we got kicked off for actually talking about Jeffrey Epstein before it was acceptable to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, when one of his buddies bought the station, and we were gone shortly. They bought the parent company. We were gone shortly thereafter. I believe it was Leon Black. It was shortly before he got exposed, even though we were already exposing him and his friends on the show. So that's part of what got kicked off. But I've had my website taken down before for posting like documents Epstein related for the type of stuff that we're doing a lot of now. A lot of people questioning and noticing things. We got kicked off in about like 2019 from WSB doing that, and been doing the podcast strictly ever since. Deconstructing propaganda. I try to do it through with a comedic lens. I have a friend on that plays Trump. He was at Bro Grove.
Awesome.
He did a great job. He always does a great job. Josh Warren, he's an actor, and he's Trump he's the best Trump that I've seen, in my opinion, but I am biased. But we also have a bunch of other people that come on and play characters. I have a background in stand-up comedy and improvisational comedy, so I try to bring in my friends to play various characters related to the news, and combine that with news deconstruction. My whole philosophy at this point is like, it's such theater, and it can be so cartoonish what goes on in the news and in the psyops that we are being subjected to, that you just have to. You can't get into that doom mode where everything's just overwhelming. That you just have to. You have to mock it, and I try to also just like be helpful if I can, which it can be easy to get cynical and stuff, but I feel like, when I first started deconstructing propaganda, it was a long time ago. I was teaching stand-up comedy at the time, and I recognized that people thought they couldn't do what they wanted to do. They thought that they couldn't get up on stage and even do a stand-up set because there were certain ways that it was supposed to work. And just like people think there's certain ways you're supposed to get this job or that job, you have to check all these boxes. And I had this realization that it's all propaganda that builds this psychological barrier around what you think you can do that is an illusion. And deconstructing propaganda, while it can reveal some dark things about the world, it also reveals that barrier that holds you back is actually, it's BS. It's not real. And you can actually do things in different ways using the skills that you have, instead of being dependent on certain paths that we've been led to believe when we were younger that we must follow to achieve success. And I think that's freeing, personally.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And really, the people do appreciate it at the end of the day, like what we do, and the boundaries and the obstacles that we have to jump over to constantly try and keep our platforms and all this kind of stuff. It's like funny what you said. with the show we had with Austin on. Shout out to Austin Pickard, the Underclass podcast. He brought up Yuri Bizmenov, right? Like Yuri Bizmenov was like that ex-KGB guy, came over to America, was doing an interview and talking about how basically like active measures, right? This concept of a psychological program to demoralize a country. It's a big psyop program to honestly destroy a country from within. It's like a different type of warfare, right?
Yeah, and it's a demoralization campaign to. So I won't dive too deep into this. Maybe we'll get into it. But this guy Martin Seligman, who should be subpoenaed in relation to Epstein, he's never been questioned about it yet. He's in a court document that nobody talks about related to Epstein. He helped Epstein get that sweetheart deal. Martin Seligman, he created the theory of learned helplessness back at the University of Pennsylvania in the late 60s. Around the same time, declassified documents revealed that there was an MK Ultra program going on there. And then he was torturing dogs to discover this theory of learned helplessness, where he would torture them, and then it would reach the point where the cage could be open and the dogs would not even leave, even though they knew torture was coming, because they had been conditioned to believe that they had no control. Nothing they could do could change their outcome, so they just accepted it. They had learned helplessness. And he posited at the time that this same thing could be applied to humans. Fast forward to after 2001, and CIA goes and after September 11th, he goes and they go and have a meeting with him. And at this meeting, they learn about learned helplessness, and then learned helplessness becomes the foundation for the post 9/11 CIA torture program, based on Martin Seligman, again, who Epstein funded the work of starting in 2003, and who helped Epstein get that sweetheart deal. It's in a court document. Nobody's ever asked him about his relationship with Epstein. And then he gets this military contract to do all this other work we can get into later. It's called positive psychology, which is brainwashing. He's the brainwasher in chief for the U.S. government. But the learned helplessness aspect of it, Ted Kaczynski's manifesto was inspired by this guy's learned helplessness theories. Kaczynski wrote all these letters about how the people are the dogs in his experiment. And what this demoralization campaign is, I see it as this attempt to create this mass learned helplessness, so that there cannot be people that actively challenge those who kind of rule behind the curtains or even in front of us. And it's the idea that nothing you can do can change your outcome. And the art of war, like make yourself appear bigger and monolithic and whatever, so that people don't even try to fight back. I think it falls in line with that. And the way that I think about that is, when it comes to demoralization, is like the very act, like accepting this demoralization, like it gives them what they want. Having hope, seeing ways to have hope in what you can control and what you can do right in front of you, instead of looking at all these people as a big I think they're all personally. I think they fight with each other, and I don't think it is exactly what we think it is in every way. But having hope and taking action right in front of you, like doing these meetups like we did, that in and of itself is like an act of resistance, because you're not laying in that cage refusing to get up, right, because you're not succumbing to the conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those are great points, man. And at some point, it's like when you look at all the movies, man, you mentioned resistance, and I always, whenever I watch Star Wars or Terminator or whatever, there's some sort of group that is against what's taking place in the world or in the galaxy, whatever it is, and we're not integral with their theosophies or philosophies and how they want to go about the world, because we kind of know at the end of the day, a lot of this stems back to, the elites, this bloodline of a family that's kind of running and trying to control things. I wanted to get your take on this. Do you think AI is being used as a tool to push propaganda and to like demoralize us even more?
Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly is demoralizing trying to find any real answers on through Google research with AI. I think that it can make society stupid,
right?
Because finding real information with these AI search bots now, it's impossible. I mean, you can do it, but like, you used to be able to find a lot of stuff through a Google search. I say like 2017, the Las Vegas shooting is when I noticed a real drop off in your ability to find anything. You could still find stuff using all the search modifiers and whatnot by eliminating, like, you put a minus and then you take the word next to the minus. If for people listening haven't used search modifiers, if you don't want certain words to show up, minus, and then right next to that, just take that word out. So if you're trying to like eliminate today's news because you're looking for old news to kind of compare it to, you got to get rid of all that stuff today so it doesn't flood out what you're looking for. You used to be able to do that a lot easier, but now what happens is you put in a search and the first thing that comes up is this populated AI response at the top of Google. And most people, for sake of convenience and with probably a little bit of unearned trust that they might be giving to this AI, might just accept that. And I would encourage them to type the same request in 3 or 4 times and look how different each answer is. So it will be contradicting answers. You can then go click on the links that they cite. The links will be some comment on Reddit, or it'll be an article from 8 years ago, even if you did a search modifier saying, show me something from this week. So it gives you wrong information. It then makes it harder and more cumbersome to search around that. And then if you go compare it to ChatGPT or something, you're going to get completely different answers. Then you can flip them and then do the same searches and they'll flip there. It's just, it's BS. It's awful. We have law firms who are getting paid money to defend clients who have gotten disbarred because they have gone to ChatGPT and said, give me the case law to defend this client. And ChatGPT made up case law. And my sister's a lawyer. We tried it I was like, let's try this with one of your cases. And we put it in and it did the same thing. It like cobbled together a bunch of different cases, information from cases into one case that did not exist that she would have gotten in trouble had she actually used. And so I think it can be, from that aspect of it, from the search aspect of it, it makes it harder for us to find real and good information without recognizing that. From the demoralizing aspect of it, I certainly think it can. We've had that one kid like killed himself, right? Like the AI told him to. That's a kid.
Right.
So I think there's definitely an experimentation going on right now that they maybe don't care what happens. It can have a demoralizing effect. I know from an article I read earlier this week, it was about how the government had just spent like $80 million or something with Microsoft, Elon Musk, who was it? Google, all the big AI companies to implement a system of AI research, which apparently, according to the article, they have already been using in all of the major intel agencies, relying wholly on AI to do research for them, which my thought was, okay, so either they are relying on the same research and false information that's coming up that we're getting, or the really good research stuff already exists and they're keeping it from us, so we keep getting messed with the stupid one, which I think is probably more likely the case.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, and golly, man, I think I even looked up my friend sent me this study. I'm gonna try and pull it up here real quick. And my friend is one of the guys I work with, but he's really into Chat GPT. He's going through paramedic school, and for those folks that are new to the show, like I'm a paramedic, I'm a fireman, so it's a big part of our job. And he goes to Chat GPT a lot as a resource, right, to help him with anything that he can't understand. Trying to learn medicine. I mean, because it's like a whole nother language.
It's decent for some of that as long as you like approach it with caution and you verify,
Right. Well, real quick, I have to tell the system I'm not a robot, but this is a peer-reviewed study, and it says your brain on Chat GPT accumulation of cognitive debt when using an AI assistant for essay writing tasks. But it goes into talking about basically how your brain, through a pathophysiological effect, right? Like we know that how I kind of explain to people that aren't familiar with the term, pathophysiology is basically when you take an unnatural source and you you interact it with the body goes through this like response, right? So for example, whatever, smoking, right? Smoke goes into your lungs. It's not what it was naturally created and intended to inhale per se, right? That's why you cough and all this kind of stuff, right? Or whatever. But the body goes through like a pathophysiological effect with that, and it goes through a response. Well, the same thing is happening with your brain and Chat GPT. So your brain is going through these unnatural responses, and it's changing the chemistry. It's honestly really starting to lower IQs. It's starting to dumb people down. All of that. It's doing it in a way to, because your brain is chemically becoming imbalanced. It's
Right.
unnatural. Let's just say.
Yeah, it's like a reliance on. I mean, that makes me think of like TikTok and shortening attention spans with the short videos and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the overloading of dopamine and all of this or
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, we can go on and on about it. I wanted to get your take, man. So you cover a lot of propaganda, you cover a lot of news, a lot of current events. What has what's on the table this week, right? We know that there was a shooting, I think, going on. I forget exactly where it was. Forgive me. I've been
The one
so
in New
busy this
York.
week. Yeah, the one in New York,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts with all of these new sources of information that we're getting? I mean, it seems like a lot of propaganda is being promoted. I see anything that really mainstream or whatever they push out seems to be propaganda led.
Well, yeah. So Edward Bernays, if you want to take it back like 100 years, he was a propagandist for the government and for the business world for like 5 decades. Very very creepy guy. Sigmund Freud's nephew, and he created the term public relations because after the first major large scale propaganda campaign that was done during World War One to swing the public in favor of a war that they didn't want to get into in the U.S. Propaganda got a bad because it was revealed. Like today, some of this stuff, some of the manipulations are being revealed. So he had to change propaganda, which he saw as a good thing, into public relations. And so he says in his book, and I recommend a book called Crystallizing Public Opinion that he wrote in 1923, which, according to Bernays himself, Hitler relied on to create his propaganda campaign in Germany and during World War, or before World War II, which Bernays says and he brags about in his autobiography, which is an interesting thing to brag about. But in that book, he says the news basically doesn't happen; it's created, and that's the whole theme of it. The news is created, and an example of that is his Flames. I think it's Flames of Freedom or something like that, where he popularized smoking for women. He was working with the tobacco company, and he often crossed over. He worked with the tobacco company and the government. Like he helped overthrow a democratically elected president in Guatemala, working with the CIA and working for United Fruit together. And so he gave all these women, because he was trying to sell cigarettes for this company, and he got all these women together and he gave them cigarettes. Well, first he said, "Hey, aren't you upset about the taboo against you smoking cigarettes? Are you tired of being treated this way by these men who won't let you do what they do?" Just really amping these actors up, basically, that he's getting. And he gives them cigarettes, and he tells them to go walk in this, I think it was like Easter parade or something. It's either Easter or Independence Day. It's one of the two. Then he said, "What's going to happen after you do?" He said, "Get your boyfriend to come with you," because he wanted there to be like there was a man there that was allowing it. They're doing it in defiance of the man who they are with, and walk in this parade and shatter this taboo against women smoking. And then you're going to have reporters come up to you, and when they come up to you, here is what you say. And what he told them to say was the headline. And it was something about freedom, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but that happened, and all these major publications came up and asked them. They delivered the line, and then the next day, all over the country, all the headlines were exactly what he told them to say. So the news of that day was created for the purpose of selling cigarettes And then eventually that kind of started to change the culture around that. But that is how I see all of the news working. Real things happen, obviously, but it's often curious why one shooting gets more attention than another. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if circumstances aren't, maybe just as weird. It's because one of them serves an agenda that's going on at the moment, and the other one doesn't. So something's not going to get covered just to get covered. It's going to get covered when it fills or fuels whatever narrative is being driven at the moment, at least that they hope that it would fill that narrative, which can lead to real events happening and being covered, and then false flag type events or PR type stunts creating certain news. So that's what I see is going on. That shooting, I don't. My presumption is like, I don't know what's real or not anymore. It probably happened. Of course, things could be staged and whatnot, but I have no way of knowing that if I wasn't there. So, for the sake of people who might have died, I try to presume that it happened with an awareness of that there are false flags and whatnot, and I just try to look at it through, okay, what purpose are they trying to serve by highlighting the story? And that particular shooting, I'm unsure yet. I thought it was very weird that it was like a CTE thing, they said. He was mad at the football league, and then he went to the building where Blackstone is, and he killed himself on the 33rd floor. And there's an NFL person and a Jewish lady from Blackstone that died. I mean, it's tragic for their families. It's sad, but it's just like, that's a weird set of circumstances to kind of wrap my head around. I'm not sure what to make of that one.
Yeah, it's wild, man. There's so many weird things, and I really think you have a good algorithm that you're using when you're processing this information. I like what you said. You're thinking of different questions, pertaining to the material rather than the obvious questions. You're trying to figure out, like, how is this to persuade me in some way, right? Like,
Yep.
What is the overall purpose of this? And I really think at some point there's a big thing is they like to promote fear for some reason. And they like to build up emotions, because how can you manipulate someone at the highest potential? Well, you get them really emotional, because they make irrational decisions, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of it was like, just for example, 9/11, right? I mean, America got crushed. And the way the news was pushing out all the information, America was like, we need to come up out of the ashes, and we need to build up and come together. And coming to know about it all, really, our government was involved, and the Pentagon was involved. A lot of other people were playing factors in all of this kind of stuff, but it manipulated us to be okay to go to war and to go through a 15-year war in the Middle East, and to take over, what was it, 5 or 7 countries pretty much.
Yeah, I remember people quitting school. I think it was like my first year of college, and I remember being in the cafeteria, and a guy I knew was like, "I'm joining the military," like right then, and he left. And I'm sure that happened all over the country because of that emotional response to what happened. And that's exactly, you're right. That it's short circuiting the thinking, and getting people while they're still emotional. And Bernays writes about that too. He writes about the pugnacious aspect. That's the way he talks about fighting. You get people emotional, then you can get them to fight with each other. Then that can get the attention to an issue that you want to highlight in the news. And then going back to not that Seligman guy, but another guy that Epstein funded the work of at Harvard University. He I don't know if you've seen that thing where it's Epstein's chalkboard.
Yes.
So I did a show where I showed where all those words came from in research.
Was this in his deposition or something?
No. Well, you're talking about the names of these guys?
The chalkboard, yeah, where it was like all these kind of cryptic little things.
Yeah, so that was something that somebody sent James O'Keefe, and he put it out there. He says it was. I don't really trust James O'Keefe that much, but
sure.
I was looking at the chalkboard. My first question about the chalkboard was, is that really his chalkboard? I have no real idea if it is. Then I started looking at the video, and I think it probably is. And then when I was like comparing it to the research I had done based on the brainwashing, essentially, Epstein funded like these 4 scientists who all helped him get that deal, who basically together would be like Edward Bernays' wet dream of brainwashing science. They're very like anti-religion, trust the science. They pioneered that. One of them did. Which is another one was giving recommendations on how to coerce people into taking. And this guy, he did research on time. So on that chalkboard, it says time delay on the right side of it, on the bottom. And time delay is a phrase that's mentioned like 38 times in this one guy's research that Epstein funded. That also was funded by the government, by the way. That's why you're never going to hear any real Epstein stuff. It's because to expose Epstein really and the people he's connected to, like these guys should be subpoenaed. They won't be. Is to expose themselves and their deep entanglements with Epstein and funding the same type of work that he does. And so I think all this other stuff about that is a distraction away from what the real issue is.
Dude, I mean, we're fighting against psyops within psyops, man.
Absolutely, dude. It truly is, and they want to keep you emotional so you don't look past that first layer of it. But time delay, in the context of what that chalkboard and this research is, if you force people into making decisions quicker, you'll get them to cooperate and do what you want. You'll get them to conform. If you force them or allow them to have more time, they will start to deliberate and they will start to use the thinking brain, which they absolutely don't want people using. And I just thought that was interesting. It was on Epstein's chalkboard, research at Harvard that he funded, and I think it relates to what you're saying about the emotional.
Yeah, the emotional response, because in some way, if I was to push you from the 1-yard line all the way to the 99-yard line, you would know that I'm pushing you if I put my hands on you. But if I did it in a way to where you walked there,
right,
then you would not even have any idea of my existence.
Dude, that is exactly the goal of propaganda. It's to get people to choose to take actions that could very well be against their best interest for the sake of those pulling the strings.
Right. Now, the gentleman that you talked about with the book Crystallizing Public Opinion, does he have any other affiliate? Like, do you know anything about his family? Like, where's his family today? Is there any connections that they have?
Yeah. His uncle was Sigmund Freud, and now his nephew is the guy who started Netflix.
Oh yes, I've heard of this. Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember which one, what his name is off the top of my head, but Netflix is a propaganda machine. It has some good shows, but like
I really wonder if Netflix, if you like trace some sort of, if you kind of decipher it or in some way, if we got Donut on and he deciphered Netflix and went to the etymology of it, it would probably come out to be like
Satan,
haha, deceiving you or something like that. Or Satan, whatever. Yeah. It'd be like wild, man. I guarantee it, man. And with the movies today, what other better way to push emotional imbalance and propaganda on the public, right? I mean, you can do it while they're at home, sitting comfortably in their couch, right? Rather than always trying to push propaganda over news or events, taking place.
Oh, yeah, totally. You know what I'm saying? It's not always directed in your face. I mean, it definitely can be subtle, like through the film themes and stuff like that. But Bernays himself, connecting to the Netflix aspect of that, is he wrote, and I think it's his book Propaganda, he wrote about, he was excited about the rise of cinema. And I'm going to butcher the exact phrasing of it, but he said something like, it gives you the ability to whisper in somebody's ear and communicate to the whole world through that medium. And Netflix is certainly something that he would have been very excited about. And I think our phones being in our pocket, they call them points of contact within channels of propaganda. It's like a point of contact. It's just like an advertising, a bus that drives by and there's an advertisement on there. That's a point of contact to influence. And then you have a bathroom wall. Anywhere you're getting information in the world. So basically everywhere is a point of contact, but effective points of contact now are in our pockets and on our screen, so they can reach us and far more ways than somebody like Bernays, especially with social media and stuff, ever could have imagined. So that's why it's like a balance of good and bad. But those are some of those indirect ways that might not even be news related that you're being, and those are really going to be the more effective ones. You know, you turn on Netflix, you fall asleep, and your subconscious is basically listening under the guise of a new television show.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There was like a show, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like the premise was like an aspiring stand-up comic, a stalker follows based on the real life true story. And I watched like 2 episodes of it, and I'm just like, I just watched 2 dudes in a shower for 45 minutes. What is going on? Why did I have this on for so long? Just thinking it was going to end. And of course, the show wins awards, and the guy, it's terrible.
Right. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, man. What? So with all these things taking place, with all these psyops happening, at least from within a 10-year window, why do you think? And this is a really big generalized question, but why do you think? Where do they want us to be in 10 years? Do you think, as a country, psychologically?
Conforming, subservient. I think we can look back to the era to kind of see the way that they treat people who don't just accept what they're being told. There is that the Harvard research of the guy who gave the recommendations, his name's Martin Novak. His research is on the evolution of cooperation, which is basically how to get people to comply, and then how to minimize defectors, as he calls it, because his position is that for society to evolve, according to all the research he's done over all the Epstein-funded research he did, Epstein funded this guy from the 90s to 2018. After he got out of, this guy was sneaking Epstein around at Harvard after he got out of prison the first time, and hiding where the money came from. It's crazy. And so he believes that society evolves through a combination of biological processes like Darwin, but with a main driver of it being a cooperation. And he thinks that's true with plants, with everything in existence, and therefore for society to evolve, there must be cooperation, which when you then read the conversations these elites have, something called the Edge Foundation, which is they have these billionaire dinners. They would call them the billionaire dinners, the world dominator dinners. This is a group that Epstein funded also, who's the main funder of. And you had to be invited to this stuff. It's basically just like, how do we get the plebes to just do what we want them to do for the purposes of us evolving to something better? And it kind of gets towards that transhumanism aspect of it. But I believe that ultimately the goal is to just minimize people who ask too many questions.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And the transhumanism thing is like really crazy, right? You got Peter Thiel, you've got all of these other people that are starting to develop and build these AI systems, which will be used for surveillance at some point. And I feel like not only for surveillance purposes, but I also feel because, well, you mentioned it earlier, like with Google, like people are going to become so docile at some point to where they want to just go to the source, whatever that source may be. It could be AI, to help them navigate their lives, to help them make decisions for them. And people start to detach. They start to lose their own agency for their own person, right? Like they no longer, like yes, they can make their own decisions, but that's not their first option. Like they're not going to.
They don't trust themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's a big part of our humanity. Because I think at the end of the day, too, like podcasts like yourself or shows, and when we talk about these concepts, we're trying to like fight for like the freedom for humanity, like because we know it ethically and morally at the end of the day, that's what we're still holding on to. And at some point, some part of the agenda, they're trying to detach us from that. Because if
absolutely,
like if you're a farmer and you're running a farm and you're controlling the animals because you have the authority and the dominion over the ecosystem, right? You feed them, you give them water, you do all this stuff. You're the ultimate authority over their life. That's that God complex,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. That makes me, I mean, that's like the type of I keep going back to Epstein because it's just in the front of my mind and it's in the news, but the research with this guy Lawrence Cross, Krauss, not C. I don't know why I have to. I don't know if I'm even saying the names of these guys right. They're all like they all sound German to me, honestly. When I
They're all reptiles anyway.
Yeah, totally. So this guy is someone who Epstein funded his work. Also, he funded he organized like an anti-gravity, not anti-gravity, but like we don't like gravity, how to fight like the gravity theories on Epstein Island in 2002 that Stephen Hawking attended and that some unnamed people from CERN attended. And then Epstein funded this project called the Origin Project at Arizona State University in 2003. And he put this guy, Lawrence Cross, as the head of it. Now Cross, his other claim to fame is that he first came up with a theory about dark energy existing everywhere in the universe that we are unaware of. And then that was like confirmed later, and some people won a Nobel Prize. Which, by the way, back to the chalkboard, says dark brain on the bottom right of it. And I'm pretty certain that that's a reference to Cross's work of dark energy, but the parallel of the brain being like the universe. And there's like 60 to 80% of the circuits in the brain don't respond to external stimuli, and it's unknown exactly what those circuits are capable of. And I think this connects to the transhumanism evolution idea. And I think that's what that's a reference to on that chalkboard is the dark universe, dark energy, dark brain. And so Cross, these things that this ASU Origin Project did would bring Neil deGrasse Tyson, Stephen Hawking. They would have these symposiums, as I referenced earlier, that were the pioneers of the anti-God, separate from the family, trust the science, we are your authorities culture that we saw kind of peak during. And I think that connects to what you're talking about here is they want to be the gods. They want to be the ones who direct people's actions. And that is some of the research that I think that they're pursuing and how to do that is they don't want people like if there's a God that people trust more than the government or more than these authorities, then that God is going to be more of an influence over those people, just as their families will be if they have a family, than these scientists and these governmental authorities who want to be that North Star.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. And I probably am butchering this, but you'll hear some of these big wig elites. You know, for example, I think it's Henry Kissinger, but he even said a quote. I'm not going to repeat the whole quote because I don't really remember it, but it was basically like, you know, I am a god. And if someone's saying that and they're expressing that, they truly believe that. I think that's, you know, because what sits in the heart, you know, the mouth professes. And so when these people that are, you know, have their foot in the door and they're actually really controlling a lot more than we really think in the world, and they're saying these things, well, what's the pyramid scheme look like, right? You know, what corporations are we thinking about that are also affiliated with this? And like, there's a hierarchy system. So if these people are up here, well, then they've got affiliates below them, right? It's a pyramid scheme. And then they've got other affiliates below them. And the people below these people, like these elites, they don't know the real agenda. They're just kind of doing, they're doing what feels good, or they're just kind of running the protocol per
getting
se.
paid too.
They're getting paid, dude. They don't care. And a lot of things are moved through the system because of money, because people love money, and people will do bad things for money. We know that. I mean, look at the Epstein stuff. Like, this guy was really, really wealthy, and he was funding a lot of people.
Yeah, we have no idea where his money came from, but we do know that he was wealthy and he was controlling these people, all these scientists. When you look into what was going on, he was definitely in charge because he was funding their careers.
Yeah, that's crazy. So let's get into this a little bit. I'm excited to kind of touch on this topic with you. So the Epstein stuff with the administration that we have in It's like going back to propaganda.
Are we
Right?
still talking about Epstein?
Yeah,
Are we still talking?
I know. It's crazy. But they beat us to crap, man, for 4 years, right? The bad cop came in and wrecked the interrogation suspect. And then now, we've ushered in this new administration and everything was sounding like, oh, like such good cop, right? But really, when what we're seeing being passed, the big beautiful bill, the Genius Act, all of the AI infrastructure and the groundwork that's being played out, a lot. I have so many. I, I was calling this a long time ago. I said that Trump, all these people, they're all working for the same bird. They're all part of the same cabal, right? What are your thoughts with the Epstein list and our administration and all that stuff?
Well, it's not a secret that Trump's name has been on court documents. There's thousands of pages of Epstein court documents that are publicly available to be read through. Years ago, when I first started researching this in like 2016, when he first ran, my presumption was like, oh, we got versus and so I researched it, and Trump comes out looking far better in the documents than Clinton does. I did speak with the lawyer who is not. He's come out and done an MSNBC interview recently, and like me, is like, it's going to be crazy if he actually gives Maxwell a pardon. Unless 1,000 people are frog marched, 1,000 people are frog marched. That's the only acceptable conclusion, and that's not going to happen. But it was the lawyer of like 9 or 10 of the victims, not the one that Epstein hired. Epstein hired one of the lawyers for the victims in one case, which is crazy. Until he could control the case.
Wow.
Yeah, he literally, the lawyer was hired by Epstein in one of the cases. But this other guy, Bradley Edwards, and he told me that Trump was the only person who didn't like dodge deposition, and that he didn't see any evidence that Trump was involved in it. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not evidence that exists of something, and it's certainly questionable, his past relationships. But what I've seen in court documents, Trump's name is there because the depositions are questioning, did Donald Trump give you a massage? Which the answer was no in Virginia Giuffre's, which used to be Virginia Roberts. So when you research Virginia Giuffre, you have to like remember her last name used to be Roberts, and so it's Roberts in all the documents. So that's why she cannot show up if you're searching Giuffre.
Interesting.
But there is so many celebrities and people that were associated with Epstein, who he was putting himself around, whose names come up, like Chris Tucker, obviously Kevin Spacey. I think a lot of people know that one. Who they should be questioned, and I'm sure they have at some point, or maybe they haven't. But their names come up because these girls that were victimized are being asked if they ever saw them somewhere, or if they had an interaction with them. So it's not surprising that Trump's name is there. I don't know what they have that we haven't seen that's being covered up. I would like to see it. We're not going to see anything. We're going to see nothing. We were never going to see anything for a number of reasons. I've said this even before Trump was president. Blackmail material, if somebody is in possession of it, is going to continue being blackmail material if somebody else gets possession of it. It's right. More useful to use it against people in positions of influence than it is to have those people in positions of influence behind bars. And until that person's influence is gone, you're not gonna see anything about it. So all of this stuff is a distraction. It'll be absurd. Maybe he's going to extract Ghislaine back to Israel, or not, back to Mossad. I think she was a handler of Epstein. Absolutely. Her dad, I'm sure you guys are aware, was MI5. He died mysteriously. Right. He was given a funeral in Israel. There's a bunch of Mossad agents at the funeral. I'm not guessing the apple falls too far from the tree there when it comes to that. So she seems to me as the one who was pulling the strings there, which I think, for me, makes sense why she's still alive and why Epstein is maybe dead. I think he's probably been extracted somewhere.
Sure.
To some island. But the list of people who should be subpoenaed that will not be So if you see anything that happens, and I can show you the document if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's run it.
Yeah, let me get it up here. So this document is let's just show the whole thing. It's actually Courts from Pacer. There's been pieces of this document that I've been putting on the internet for like 9 years. That's getting my
So
website.
real quick, this document, what's it called again?
It's a plea letter.
Okay.
And it was written by Alan Dershowitz. And so this is the document where the story about Jeffrey Epstein helping to create the Clinton Global Initiative came from. And people know that fact. And they've seen that little paragraph, which is like, it's like up here somewhere. Yeah, Clinton described Epstein as committed philanthropist with a keen, astute global market, blah, blah, blah. Epstein sponsored. There's just a bunch of this document is an intimidation document that is designed to say, look at all the powerful friends that Epstein has. If you want to continue taking this to trial, this is what you're going to be dealing with. Or you can take what little the deal will offer while we're still willing to offer. And shortly after this, the plea deal was signed. This is the document that got Epstein the deal. And nobody ever tells people that when it comes to the Clinton thing. The people who lent their names, there's only 5 people specifically whose names are mentioned in this document. Clinton is one of them, and then these 4 scientists that I've been mentioning. And wow. Yeah, so
this is awesome, brother, by the way. This is awesome.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad you like it. Martin Novick, the guy who I was talking about, the cooperation, evolution of cooperation, the guy who made recommendations, who was sneaking Epstein around after Epstein got out the first time. That's a common thread here. 3 of these 4 scientists right here all continued to take money from Epstein after he got out of prison. Before and after, they all supported him. Novak actively was trying to rehabilitate Epstein's image after he got out the first time. He snuck him around the Harvard PED Center. PED, some people point to that. It's the Program for Evolutionary Dynamics. It got founded by Epstein, and Harvard used to have this on their website, which you can read this in a document that Harvard has on their website right now about an investigation into Epstein's ties to it. So you can verify that information. Epstein founded the Program for Evolutionary Dynamics on the condition that he put Martin Novak, who he called his favorite scientist, whose work he funded from the 90s to 2018. He put him as the head of that program, moved the facility for it off campus, had his own office there, would give Novak a list, go get all these people. I want to talk to these people who work at Harvard. And he was like his secretary. The guy who was supposedly the head of the program doing the research was like Jeffrey Epstein's secretary. And Epstein would have like parties there on the weekends with, it says in the Harvard document, it says like 20-year-old girls. He just make out like front of these. It's crazy, the stuff that he would do there. And this guy was keeping his visits a secret because Epstein was still paying the rent on the building and he was still funding his research. So he needed Epstein to get out because Epstein, he was dependent on him for his work and his position, and that makes sense why he would lend his name to a document that you can find through. You can't find this full document through a Google search. That's why most people have never seen it. You have to use Pacer. You have to do like a legal public document search. And I was directed to this by the lawyer of the victims like 9 years ago. Wow. And every time I put it online, my website gets deleted or it gets taken down.
Oh my! Well, let that be confirmation for you, bro.
Right? Yeah,
that's okay.
For real. So that's the guy doing the cooperation research, the evolution, and these guys are all associated with Edge.org, which Epstein funded. That's probably where he met him through. And then this, we'll go back. Roger Schnack here, leading researcher in the application of cognitive learning theory. This paragraph starts for those listening, by the way. In the past 4 months alone, Epstein has made grants to research programs at major institutions under the supervision of some of the most highly regarded research professionals and scholars in their fields, including, and then Martin Novak, and he lists the other guys. And then down here, it says the institutions that he's founded or funded. Institutions funded include Harvard University, Penn State, Lenox Hill, Biomedical Research and Education Foundation. And going back to the chalkboard, there's one part of it that says, it says music, and then there's a slash. I'm pretty sure the word is brain. It just looks like he wrote it sideways. He also funded the Harvard's Medical School's Institute for Music and Brain Science, which that's going to be what music does to the brain. Can put people in a trance and stuff like that. I would like to know more about that research, but this guy Roger Schnack here, he was an early pioneer in AI. who believe that the best way to develop AI is to make AI teach, to do training simulations, immersive training simulations. And the government liked what he did, and he ended up working with the Department of Defense for years to do military training simulations. And he also worked for DARPA. He did research for DARPA. He's worked on a number of classified stuff. That stuff that the government worked with him on, same stuff that Epstein funded. Martin Novak, cooperation, same stuff funded by the government at the same time that Epstein was funding it. Then you come down here to Lawrence Cross. That's the guy I was telling you about, the cosmologist and the physicist, the trust the science guy. He was Obama's science policy guy on his 2008 campaign, and this is after this document came out. He was hired by Obama after he helped Epstein get that deal, and he's one of those guys that's on that group that does the doomsday clock predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they come up here, and all of these guys helped Epstein. And by the way, Lawrence Cross, after Epstein got out the first time, was asked about his relationship with Epstein, and he said that his life has not been hurt by his relationship with Epstein. It's been uplifted by his relationship with Epstein. He continued to defend Epstein until he got accused of sexual harassment himself in 2018, and his program at ASU was shut down. And he's alive still, but his reputation has been damaged. Schnack, he died in 2023, but he wrote in a book in 2005 that he was also Epstein's neighbor, and he also organized I can't remember what the meeting he organized on his island was, but he organized one there too. He wrote that Epstein lives the type of life that all men dream of living, and I can't remember the word he used, but what he says is, and without morals getting in the way. And he visited Epstein in prison the first time he was there. He got money before and after. Cross got money before and after. So all three of these guys defended Epstein, got money before and after, which makes sense why they would lend their name willingly to a document that helped Epstein get the sweetheart deal. Now, that's the question you ask Bill Clinton. People have talked about Bill Clinton and the Clinton Global Initiative, but that's not the right question. It's the context of why his name was used. He's never come out afterwards and condemned the fact that his name was in this document, because he's never been asked about his name being in this document, because people don't know what this document is. They just know some of the info from it.
Right.
And then you come up here and you go to, this is the most interesting one right here, Martin Seligman. Martin Seligman, which is known for his positive psychology. This is a guy who's a learned helplessness theory with MK Ultra back in the 60s at UPenn. A CIA interrogation program was based on his work. Couple more interesting facts. The Ted Kaczynski's work was his book based partly on his work, according to Ted Kaczynski's writing himself. And there was also, he inspired the work of an Australian researcher, another cognitive brain guy, a behavioral modification guy over there. At the same time that we had sent our MK Ultra guy over to Sydney, the University of Sydney, I think it was, to do MK Ultra work over there. This guy's working underneath that guy. Same type of theme. And this guy actually ended up writing the foreword to one of Seligman's books in like 2008, maybe. I can't remember the exact date. But he later died in 2014, the doctor I'm speaking of, in Singapore under mysterious circumstances after he was accused in Australia. He had just been accused of doing the exact same type of experiments that Seligman was doing on the dogs, except on children. He was accused of for experimental purposes. And his name is Anthony Kidman. I don't know if that last name rings a bell, but it's Nicole Kidman's father.
Wow.
And so all of these guys connected to Seligman, to Epstein, to the work that was being researched, and then known for his work in positive psychology. In 2003, he founded at UPenn, so Harvard, ASU, and UPenn, he funded the origin of all of these programs that these guys all became the head of that are in this document. Seligman's Positive Psychology Center at UPenn it's brainwashing is what it is. So a year after Epstein got out, after this or 2 years out, in 2009, I think. It was either a year or 2 years after Seligman's name is in this document. Seligman was given a $31 million no-bid contract by the military to conduct psychological experiments on the Army. It was an experiment that at the time, and still it's considered to be unethical and to be against the Nuremberg Code, because the soldiers didn't know what was going on. There was no informed consent. They couldn't opt out of it, which is you're not supposed to do that. And he bragged at the time about how this is going to be the biggest psychological data collection and profiling effort that's ever done. And it's believed that he was given that deal because of all of his long history of consulting with the CIA and consulting with the DOD. But this is the work that Epstein funded, the origin of the center that got all the money, that got $30 million from the government a year after Epstein gets his sweetheart deal, with the help of the guy who's getting the money to head up the whole operation. And what the operation was it was a psychological resiliency training and testing. So you do these tests that identify, to put it simply, which people are more likely to conform and just follow the orders without question. You get a high psychological resiliency score there. And which people are going to maybe question the commands of their authority, and you get a lower one there. And then you create like policies around how do you deal with either you get them out of the military, or how do you deal with these? How do you brainwash this group into becoming more like this group? And also, how do you make following your authority without question a virtue? How do you get people to overcome the psychological resistance to killing, to where they see killing as a virtuous act that was the moral thing to do? And how do you get people who are possibly at risk of suffering PTSD to come back and do another combat tour because they believe it's the moral and right thing to do to go kill people? And it's called brainwashing, not by me, by his colleagues in the science community. He's already considered to one of the most unethical experiments of all time is the learned helplessness torturing of the dogs. That's like in every single article about unethical experiments, psychological experiments, that one is right in the top 5, every single one of them. And he has that obvious willingness of corruptibility, I would say, of morals not getting in his way, just like the guy described with Epstein, which I think is probably the type of people that Epstein identified, people who thought they were above and better than everybody, than the plebes. And this guy right now, this is why this is the most interesting one. I don't know if he took money from Epstein after he got out. Based on the pattern of the other 3, my assumption is that he has, but he's never been questioned about it. Not once is he public. The only connection you can find with him and Epstein before Epstein went, and it's in Edge magazine where he's bragging about his friendship with Epstein. It might be out there a little more now because I've been talking about it on a lot of shows with Sam and Austin and a bunch of other people. So hopefully it is getting out there. But this guy right now, they have these academic rankings of influence. Right now, this guy is ranked the #1 most influential psychologist in the world right now, because he's currently still the head of the UPenn Center, a positive psychology center, and it's currently there's a project being funded by the DOJ right now called the World Happiness Project. And they used to call him Dr. Happy when he was first starting in the military, which is it's very Orwellian to call the guy brainwashing people Dr. Happy. And so he's doing this World Happiness study that basically is profiling or taking linguistics, analyzing off of social media, all the reactions and interactions that people are having, with the purpose of creating psychological resiliency scores for people globally, not just in the military, but applied in education, applied in the business world, everywhere. As I said, higher psychological resiliency score, you're conforming and you're easy. Lower, you're a problem, you're asking too many questions. How do we use this to create policy? And this is a guy who was making like recommendations at the DOD. So that right there to me is like, that's why you're never going to see the Epstein files, because it exposes this guy. I call him the head of the U.S. brainwashing industrial complex, is still getting DOJ funded money to conduct a global experiment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one more thing about this guy, because
This is great, dude. You are steamrolling right now. Let's
Thanks,
go.
dude.
This
Check
is great.
out, dude.
I have
You
so
got-
many thoughts. This is great. That's why I have a notepad.
Look at this right here.
This is
So we were talking about
crazy.
AI a second ago. This is him. This is the guy. He's 82 years old. So my position is that this guy is far more powerful than any sitting president, or to them, which is why they nobody's asked a question, because the document, I've had this document since 2017. So it's not like you can't find out this information, but nobody's ever asked. So all three, even these other guys, Novak, he got his program suspended in 2000 at Harvard. Once the investigation was done. Now he's back teaching at Harvard still, but he suffered some reputational damage. So the Schnack suffered reputational damage. Lawrence Cross suffered reputational damage. He got fired from ASU. The only one, even Clinton, is tarnished his reputation because of association with Epstein, but never Martin Seligman. He has only been given over $100 million since Epstein got it. Since he helped Epstein got it, it seems he's been rewarded to the tune of being risen to the top psychologist on the planet, and $100 million. And now a new kind of AI copy. They're doing these studies about, transhumanism. So how do we transfer the knowledge of our authorities into an AI so we can still benefit from them when they're gone? Who's the model for this? Martin Seligman, Epstein funded UPenn head.
Wow, these guys want to rule forever.
Totally, dude.
This is wild.
Yeah, so that's my Epstein focus right now, is if you're not seeing this guy on a subpoena list, then it's not real.
Right. It makes sense, man, especially with all of the gatekeeping that we see with the files and everything. I did have this thought, right? Because what we have to do is like critically think about this stuff. And
right.
I don't want to fall into what they want me to think the hidden reason is of why they don't want to release them, right? And I think that propaganda is that, the people in administration are on the list, or these people are on the list, and this is why it's not being exploited, and it's not being given to the American people. I actually think it's because of other hidden agendas that are coming down the line in the future. Yeah. Right. Let's just say 10 years from now, we see things going, very interesting with AI, especially when you hear the year 2035 and 2030, with Elon Musk and talking about artificial super intelligence and what that's going to look like. Who knows what the nations are going to be governed by at that point? Maybe it could be governed by multiple AI systems. Why are all the nations building these AI systems? If with what you were showing there, it seems like these people want to digitize themselves into these AI platforms where they can rule and reign forever. Absolutely. I mean, we see that in movies all the time. And I really think, especially with having Austin on too, and you're coming in here hot, boy, and you guys are really putting a lot of information that fits together like a puzzle. But I'm even thinking that there's a bigger agenda and a bigger sinister plan, maybe even a satanic agenda with MK Ultra from where it first started. When it first started, it's like a baby, man. But I think MK Ultra is at its point in our reality today to where it's a roaming adult, right? And it's grown so much and it's changed, and it hasn't stayed in a compartmentalized boundary. It's dispersed into multiple different avenues in today. So my thing is I think that there is some sort of agenda to where if they want to build this hive mind system, like how do you do that, right? Right. Well, you get the public to be desensitized to certain things. You get them to be normalized to certain frequencies that we weren't exposed to 150 years ago. And who knows if maybe some of these frequencies aren't triggers or switches to where now some of these MK Ultra plans can come to fruition and they could be successful, if you kind of get what I'm saying. A lot of this stems back to a 2017 article by the Rockefeller Foundation, and it was flipping a switch in the minds of rats, and where they were learning to control rats, especially based off,
Yeah.
they wanted to see how it would, how they could control rats based off of their glucose and their metabolism and all this and all that, whatever. But at the same time, and there was graphene involved with all that, and who knows what's in our bodies at this point.
Right.
Right. So my thing is what is really what's the deeper plan with all this? And as we get closer, we'll start to kind of put more puzzle pieces together to where we can see the picture and get an idea of what the artist is drawing, right? This is wild. Why is there so much, like, why is there spiritual aspects to MK Ultra? Like MK Oft and all these other programs where maybe witchcraft is involved or the occult.
Yeah, I think an aspect of that is it's the brainwashing aspect of getting people into a state of controllability, just different mechanisms of that, and creating something that is that controllable North Star.
Right.
Like the trust of science is going to be the North Star, but in different aspects of the spirituality of it is getting people into certain groups, because everybody's going to have different they're going to be pulled in different directions. I knew somebody when I first started doing stand-up comedy. It was this girl, and she was a Satanist, and she was the nicest girl, and she was a friend of mine. I used to ask her, I'd be like, what is that? Like, why are you a Satanist? And like, what is that even? And it was basically, she was just rebelling against the overbearing religion that I think her family was kind of pushing. She didn't like love Satan. She was just doing something that that went against. She was rebelling, and I think that you can have these predictable behaviors, especially in people of a certain age, which Epstein would target people who came from broken families, who were on drugs, who needed direction. And then you can kind of put something like Satanism as here's the alternative to here's how you're going to rebel. We welcome you in. And then through that collection of people, you can then put these ideas in there that might be a bit darker, that was never really the intent of the person because they weren't really thinking about it. They were just doing the opposite. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I follow you 100%. And I mean, like, why do we have brain chemistry scientists, involved in this? Why do we have, music involved in this? And why is the brain such a target for this plan or for the elites? Like, I think it's in some way to, like you said, right? Morals, right? If we could change the ethics. And I always compare this to the Georgia Guidestones, right?
Yeah.
I actually went and saw them myself. And,
oh, did you?
yeah, with me and my buddy. We went up there. We went up there to Alberton, Georgia, or wherever it is. I think that's where it's called. But
yeah.
This was about 4 or 5 months before they got blown up, and we're there and we're standing at it and we're looking at the different, Sanskrit. There's all English. There's all different. There's like 9 or 11 different languages. It's translated in. There's a time capsule, but we're reading it. And as we're reading it, me and my buddy at the same exact time, we said our response of what we thought of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this sounds real bad. And he goes, oh, this doesn't sound as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Like we just said, and I was like, and I looked and I was like, really? And, I was like, well, what makes you say that? Well, he's like, well, if you think about it, like, tactically, it doesn't come off too bad. It actually sounds like it's a good philosophy. But at the same time, I'm over here saying, no, I think it's bad. And it could be based off of, our personal beliefs and stuff. But how else are they going to get and if the guidestones are real, right? If this is something that's going to come down the line in the future to where this is kind of the construct of how the world is run, you know, to promote, you know, health and wealthiness and, you know, survivability and, you know, the fact that this is good for not just you, but for the planet. We see that that kind of plays into some of this. You know, I was like, well, why, what makes you think that it sounds good? And I think it can come from just a moral, you know, compass from inside of us, maybe what we were taught when we were kids or the families we grew up in. But in order to have people accept some sort of doctrine like that, I feel they have to, you know, program you. They've got to push propaganda. They've got to.
Yeah, it's just like Star Trek.
Yeah,
just like Star Trek.
It's wild.
You know? No, I think what it's like, why that one guy that Epstein funded calls it the evolution of cooperation instead of the evolution of compliance, because cooperation sounds like a good thing, and it is a good thing in many circumstances. But is you're putting lipstick on a pig, and they're gonna you know, they're never going to be like the evolution of how we dominate the plebes, really. You know what I mean? I think they're going to talk about it in ways that they can spin. And that's a major thing with propaganda too, is never concretely defining certain themes and word, like just really democracy. Like what is it? If you give me a concrete example. If you give concrete examples of these words that they use, they're called like glittering generalities, I believe is the term for them. Then what you do is you start isolating people. And so you can't mobilize the masses using these words that we've been programmed to have emotional responses to and to lend importance to, even though we've never really been given concrete definitions of what exactly they are and what exactly they aren't. Because the second you do that, the base of people you can mobilize around it shrinks significantly. And they can change the meaning of words, as they often do. And I remember like reading the Guidestones, the stuff it said on it, and I was actually thinking like, oh, I can see how people would spin this into being a good thing. I can see what they're kind of doing with the language manipulation. But I can also see how it can be interpreted as a very, very bad thing for everybody who is not them. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think too, a lot of the ways that you know, just these people in our world, how they like to blend in through a facade of you know, just faker. What I mean is basically it looks like brick, but it's not brick.
Like AOC is not a bartender.
Yes. Yeah.
Which that's another one of those stories. We had this cycle of news where it's like breaking news, and it's like that's not breaking. We were talking about that 8 years ago. It's just nobody focused on it. Then why now? Like all the stuff about AOC, I did at least 3 shows on one of them at least on WSB in like 2018 when she first emerged on the scene. That I pulled up the records of where she came from. I showed her house. I showed her. I was like, AOC. Well, she grew up in a fairly wealthy community around mostly white people, and she had 3 businesses while she was in school. She had a resume. She had started a media company. She started 2 other businesses. She had the kind of resume that could have gotten her a job at any Fortune 500 company in the world, and yet she's a bartender from the Bronx. They create narratives. They like whitewash the history, and they create a whole new person for these people who are basically like literally actors. Like Stacey Abrams literally was studying to be an actress at a school she got accepted to, and her family associated with. She's another creative, like everything about her is not real. She just fits the group that they want to put her in front of. And so AOC, she's a good-looking girl who can talk like she's from the Bronx, and then you can put her in front of this group that she's the best person you believe to mobilize her because they will see her as one of them. Same thing with Stacey Abrams. Like none of their stories, so like all of their backstories are much more similar to somebody like Jeffrey Epstein or somebody who grew up wealthy and privileged than any of the people who they claim to be the representative of.
Right. So you shared that chalkboard. Can you bring that up again?
Oh yeah, totally.
Let's bring that up.
because you mentioned brain. I was like, we can look at the
Yeah,
chart.
let's break this down for me.
All right.
And for folks on audio, head over to YouTube. That's
There we go.
you can't see it on audio.
There you go.
Yeah,
so
there we go.
It's got O'Keefe's thing on there, and it's not the easiest to see.
Right.
But, okay, so over here, power. All right, and so you see to the left of power, it says fin. That's financial, and then PHYS, that's physical, and then political, or then intellectual, then political. And so these are all. So Epstein was a visiting fellow at Harvard in 2005 and 2006. Now, this is a program that is for graduate students who are pursuing their PhD, who are hoping to get accepted to this program so they can use Harvard's resources to do independent research in pursuit of that, right? Not for 52-year-old creeps. Nevertheless, Epstein was accepted into this program despite having none of the qualifications for it because he had created that program for evolutionary dynamics that he put Martin Novak as the head of, and Martin Novak helped him get in to this program. And Epstein said in his application for the program that he'd be doing research with Novak. I'll actually pull up the
so
Harvard.
Funny. I see the two pillars there. That kind of reminds me of Freemasonry a little bit.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Totally.
I think too in this image, you know, they everything is put in there specifically for a reason. You know,
I completely agree. I'll show you after I run through these other words. I'll show because some of the stuff you're talking about. Actually, I think you'll find what Epstein's application says. So he had to fill out an application to get into that visiting fellow program, which he was in for 2 years. And the application, basically, the second one is I'm interested in like the origins of power and all of the various tactics of deception and other tactics to get it. So there's your deception reference. How to use deception to gain cooperation, to gain power in pursuit. I think that's plants to the right. It could be plants like planting people in certain situations. I believe it's an ecological reference to evolution of plants because that Novak guy talks about plants cooperating also in the process of evolution. That one I'm a little uncertain of that one. But these are other ways of exercising power over people: financial, intellectual, political. Down here, mirror and face is what that says below deception. Mirror and face is now this is also research that Martin Novak at Harvard did, Epstein-funded research, and Martin Novak gives this talk at the Edge Foundation, Epstein's scientific magazine for elites that he funded, where, as I said earlier, he talks a lot more frankly about what he means about evolution. How do we just get people to do what we tell them type stuff? And what he says during that basically is he's talking about different ways of using reciprocity in a form of manipulation. And he says basically you're holding up through prisoner dilemma game strategies, which he does all these AI experiments on, and I think he conducted experiments on actual people. I think he did some on children, and how they cooperate more easily. What you do is you mirror what the person you're trying to get to comply did in the previous game they were involved in. You hold up a mirror to them so that they see their face, and so that they are reacting to themselves. And you're more. There's been tons of studies. There's a book called Influence about how you mirror people. They're more likely to see you as like them, and you're more likely to like them. And that is what he's talking about here. It's a reference to a talk he gave. You hold up all you need is a mirror and a face, and the person has a face, and they think they're reacting to themselves. Therefore, you're more likely to gain cooperation.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah, and then go up here. I believe that says truth under plants and wealth. I don't know what the word next to wealth is, but appear, I think I'm almost certain is a reference to evolution. The world appears as though it were designed. And I believe this is because he references a lot of this in his talk about his theory on cooperation, creating the evolution of a species and humans. And I think you gain cooperation using these tactics, and then the new and better human will appear. That's my theory on that. Music and brain. That's music. I'm pretty sure that slash is brain. I showed you the Harvard reference there a moment ago. And
That's wild.
And then time delay right there. That's the time delay mechanism, which we actually, I think, see right now. Everybody's short on time all the time, so you're making quicker decisions. And that is very specifically studied. And in the context of the Edge Foundation talk, not even the study where he mentions it 40 times. It's like the focus of the entire government-funded study. He's basically like, if you want, look, here's what you can do. If you give people a short time span, then they will cooperate. If you allow a time delay, then you can get them to think things through. And so he's very much given an instruction on how to use time delays to the Edge Foundation people. And there's the dark brain reference that I'm pretty sure is equating the dark energy in the universe to the dark energy in the brain. Another theory on that, but I'm pretty sure this is the one because of the cosmology guy, is the decision-making portion of the brain that Martin Novak references in some of his studies. That in one of his studies, he talks about if you damage this portion of the brain, people cooperate better. So it's just crazy.
Wow.
and that part of the brain I found is sometimes referred to as the dark brain. So it could be any one of those references. It's not. I'm pretty sure it's not dank brain, as some people think there. I'm pretty sure it's dark brain. But check out this application now from. Let me find the exact spot. So this is the Harvard report on Epstein's connections. This is what got Martin Novak fired briefly. You know, he's still back there teaching, but yeah, this was published in I think 2020, and so in Epstein's application, these are the things that he said his research objective would be as a visiting fellow. Mind you, that Novak guy was just bringing Epstein around a bunch of young college girls after he knew he was a convicted offender, which is kind of crazy in and of itself. Okay.
It's so funny too how he is behind so much of the funding at universities and different universities, because when you think about it, the universities are, you know, they're the playing grounds of development and how to develop new technologies and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a perfect recruiting ground.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They said that when he came to turn in his application for this, in this document, it says that he had 2 girls in their early 20s that he called his assistant, and he was behaving strangely, just making out with them. I mean, it's just crazy. All right, so that's why this is one of the things that makes me strongly believe that Maxwell was the leader of this, because he seems like a fiend who can't help himself, who's controlled by it. Like they say in one of the, I can't remember which, it might have been this document, but they said that Epstein would just walk into groups of scientists and they'd be talking and he'd go, "What's this have to do with?" It's like,
really?
Yeah, it was. So here is his. I know it's wild. This is his first. Oh wait, that's his second application. Sorry. Okay, so here's his first application for his that he got approved, obviously, even though he didn't, because he was given money. He started giving money to like everybody after he got out too, trying to rebuild his reputation. But here was his what he said his objective would be. I wish to study the reasons behind group behavior, such as social prosthetic systems, and their relationship to a changing environment. That is, other people can act as prosthetics insofar as they augment our cognitive abilities and help us to regulate our emotion, and thereby essentially serve as extensions of ourselves. I wish to understand how the brain both allows such relationships to develop and how those relationships in turn take advantage of key properties of the brain. And then, interestingly enough, he said what he needs: resources. If the theory can be in fact tested rigorously, I would need to access to a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine. He needs an MRI. And he's talking about the timetable. He's going to formulate it, then he's going to begin to implement his experimentation. So if he followed this, then he was doing experimentations, possibly using an MRI machine, which would be to see what because Novak talks about this in his research. This is all stuff that this guy Novak researches. The thermal imaging and the heat transfer in the brain when people are put in certain situations that make them cooperate. What's the mechanism in the brain? So getting it down to that neuroscientific, biological level, mathematical level, even that you referenced earlier. And this is his second application. Where is it? Okay, justifying his second year in the program. My studies are not complete as I am working on the intersection between evolutionary dynamics, social statistical mechanics, game theory, computational biology, and synthetic biology, transhumanism, in an attempt to discover the mathematical underpinnings of competition versus cooperation. Included in this is an attempt to formalize the efficiencies of social prosthetic systems. First attempts have been to analogize it to heat and energy transfers across variable resistance nodule networks. That's neuroscience, the brain. And then I'm further attempting to find a derivation of power. Why does everybody want it? In an ecological social system that would include variables for reputation, trust or awe, and the inherent strategically diverse tactics of deception. There's like half the chalkboard right there.
Right. I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
It's all kind of coming together. And this is where can you find this online?
Oh yeah, this is on Harvard's website. Can I send you links and
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is very, very fascinating because you even mentioned earlier, right? They scatter this information over the internet, so it's extremely hard to find, and they kind of compartmentalize each thing to make it hard. They don't put it all in one story for you. You have to go out and
right.
get it in little pieces and then put it together and almost theorize it, but it's not really theorizing because everything kind of goes hand in hand out. And I've been doing this study on like different types of quantum technology and what the possibilities of quantum technology can be and what effect it can have on the body. And there was something I was watching the other day. Trump was on the news, or they were doing some sort of conference where Dr. Oz was there, RFK was there, Trump was there, and other big, health proponents of the administration.
Like a guy from the WWE was there.
Guy from the WWE. Oh, and I think one of the leading guys in his administration for AI was there. And what they're talking about is merging healthcare with the digital world, and then merging into the digital world artificial intelligence. And this goes back to where RFK is talking about wearables now. In 4 or 5 years, we're going to see every American from birth, having basically being stamped or applied to a wearable. And where everything comes in this fashion of either peace and safety or health, or it sounds like it's doing something for good, but really it's invading your privacy. It's it's against certain liberties that you have. And getting into the quantum technology stuff, they break these things up in multiple patents. Like they don't just have one patent for everything. It's like, compartmentalized into 15 different patents. But when you connect all the patents together, you understand and you look and you go, wow, okay, this is all for like one huge idea. And when I was getting into, like, for example, and you've probably heard of this patent that was created by Microsoft in 2019, just before the events that took place in 2020, March, where everyone just lost focus of this idea of this document floating around the internet, which it's a real patent. And it's funny, because we kind of talk about the mark of the beast here a little bit. And I say a little bit, my audience is like, dude, too much. I'm like, all right, listen. So, but, the fact that there's a patent by Microsoft, it's, the number is 060606. I'm still trying to figure out maybe what that kind of means. I think it breaks down into like some sort of carbon material, because carbon has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. I don't know. But it's talking about a sensor and a user, and the fact that this sensor has the ability to process and transmit body activity data, right? And so when I'm taking these little things that I know from the past and seeing what they're saying now in, in basically the future, but that RFK is like, hey, we're going to have wearables that monitors blood pressure, heart rate, blood glucose, brain waves,
Yeah.
molecular biology, all this kind of stuff, cancer, right? And
Yeah.
and so I'm like, that patent is talking about a sensor that is recording and transmitting all of that stuff to a cloud. At the time of 2019, I didn't know what the cloud was, but we have Project Stargate now,
Yep.
right? We've got all these artificial intelligent cloud. We're seeing this infrastructure being built for the possibility of this. Then I take an interview from Klaus Schwab back in 2017, where he was like kind of getting popular, and then he became really popular in 2019 and 2020, and then all of a sudden, he drops from the chairman position, and no one talks about him ever again. But
Yeah.
he was talking about wearables in 2017, where it'd be in clothing, and it would be a part of you, and it's a part of not
Like in the
change.
fabric.
Yeah, yes,
Yep.
yes, exactly. So when I'm putting all these things together, I'm like, okay, well, what the heck is that? And then I ended up finding out that there's not only studies and experiments being done at MIT, but other, colleges, kind of like what we were talking about. It seems like they're a part of the infrastructure of developing these technologies. But there's quantum technologies out there now that range from 2 to 10 nanometers in size, smaller than the average red blood cell. If you look up the red blood cell, the size of an average red blood cell is 10,000 to 30,000 nanometers. But we're talking about technologies that are, I mean,
You can go in the bloodstream and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, but they're 2 to 10 nanometers.
Yeah.
And it's like extremely smaller than a red blood cell. And it's like,
crazy.
wow, we're getting into the quantum stuff. But the fact that these technologies are able to, they're trying to merge it with biology, but there's a toxic level of it, and they're really trying to find a threshold. And I've
That's
worked
what
in
was. It's
yeah,
like the
yeah, right,
is
right. And so, but with all that said, I'm like, man, what is this for? What is this plan for? Is it I mean, you saw on the chalkboard, yeah, you were making awesome connections with dark brain, and it's like, well, like when I think of
activate those fucking things.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and the fact that kids today are getting 72 by the time that they're 14 years old, and we don't really fully know the ingredients in those things. Who knows, right? We can theorize about this all day, but with all that said, that's kind of like where my mind set it. And then I pull in the MK Ultra with this. I pull in, with what you're talking about, right? All the propaganda, everything of your research into all of this, and I'm like, man, this is super sophisticated, number one, and I think we've only touched on 10% of it, but
Yeah.
I think maybe there's some sort of just ultimate goal that they'd want to do to control people.
And I think if you can have people dependent on those technologies, I think that's ultimate system of control. You go back to when we were hunters and gatherers, then we could live off the land. People are self-sufficient, but now we're not. We depend on this technology, and if it were to get shut off or altered in a way, then there's nothing that most of the population can do. I mean, a lot of people have learned to, because they're preparing for something like that, and they don't want to be dependent on it. But the majority of the population, if you shut the grid off, they wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what if they switch the whole monetary system to where you have to be compliant to what it is they're telling you you have to now be integral with, maybe new types of technologies, but because you have to, it's the new financial system, right?
Totally.
I mean,
check this out. This is this made me think. The other day I went into Whole Foods, and hadn't been in years to Whole Foods, and I saw this little thing at the self checkout, and it was like pay with your palm. I'm like, what? How do you even pay with your palm? And so I just looked it up just now. It's using Amazon One, but you just hold your palm over, and it gets this biometric reading.
And there is like this
Like
Everyone
this.
has like this. What do I? Oh, yo, look at that. There it is.
Simplifies it. How does it work?
I want to say too. Maybe it reads the circulatory structure of how your veins and arteries maybe run or something.
Yeah, it
Because
says we all have a unique palm. Or we have
exactly, we all
something
have
like that.
some sort of unique barcode or, you know, some sort of imprint that
It's like a
distinguishes us from
fingerprint,
others.
dude. It's just like giving a fingerprint to,
Oh, I know.
you know?
I know. I hate doing it when I walk into Disney. I scan my fingerprint every time. I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I know this
Yeah.
is being sold somewhere,
It
but
is sold for ease of use. Oh, right. Yeah. And it's easy. It's to me, it's just like who who gets to check out at a grocery store and is like, oh my God, I got to pull my card out. Are you kidding me? Only if I could pay with my palm.
right,
Yeah.
right. Oh man, it's crazy, dude. Oh, and you know what's funny too, right? That patent by Microsoft that was, established in 2019. Um, with the body activity data, you mine cryptocurrency. So you
Oh
make money based off of your body activity data. Could be compliance, right? It could be, hey, you drove
yeah.
20 miles this week. Good job because of global warming. Or hey, we told you your blood pressure was too high. You went to the doctor and you got it fixed. Good job. You got it. You're complying.
Car insurance is another thing.
Oh
They
yeah.
lower it if you allow them to track the.
Oh yes. Yes. So you can kind of get the idea.
Yeah.
And so I started digging deeper and I was like, all right, let me go find what kind of sensors are, you know, being being tested on the human body. This is where I found the quantum sensors. And they're able to pick up your brainwave, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your blood glucose, everything about you, almost like your actual identity, right? Like what's inside of you and your biologics and all this. But all that stuff can also link up to a quantum ledger. And then the quantum ledger can be linked up to the blockchain. And where have we heard that before? Like, what was it? Larry Fisk. Is he the BlackRock owner? Sorry, I just a little of a
Fink.
lot.
Is it
Fink.
I think
Okay,
it's
so
Fink,
he
right?
talks about the future of financial assets and everything in the future when it comes to the financial system that we're, moving into.
Yeah.
That it'll all be backed by tokenization and blockchain. And I swear to you, dude, when I was reading through these patents, those were the flash words I was seeing almost every paragraph.
Yeah.
Crazy. QDX ledger, it's hooked up to the blockchain, and it seems like it's a new barcode system. But in order to
it sounds like literally, I hate the cliche, but the matrix of where we're harvesting, we're being harvested to, even though we'd make money doing it, our bodies is a crypto mining computer.
Yeah. Well, when I saw the Genius Act get passed, I was like, oh wow, there really might be no point of return after that. Once we switch the infrastructure of our financial system to stable coins and to crypto, and cash becomes something, of the past, it's only a few more steps forward till we get to, thinking of this concept, which is wild.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of hive mind research and how that all kind of incorporates with all this. And, maybe why they are setting up all these towers all over the place, what kind of frequencies those are sending out. But what's the end goal for all that? We're only here at 5G, but what are the capabilities of 8G, right?
I think they'd like to find out. I think it's all it's against the Nuremberg Code, as the other experiment we talked about earlier was. Is we're all attested. I think that's part of what is they've long talked about technology and the life extension possibilities of it. I just think they wanted to expedite the research on it before they move forward in certain ways, and I think they didn't care what the consequences.
I thought it was funny too that you had to comply. You had to wear something on your face. You had to take something into your body in order to be able to function in society.
Yep.
which is another psychological thing of it. And all this stuff is kind of dark, right? I mean, it sucks to really talk about this. And but again, I think these people really they want to be the queen bee, and they want us to be able to
Yep.
react to their wants and needs.
Hmm.
Just like the queen sends out the pheromones to the other worker bees, and then they fall in line. They
Yeah.
fall in line with all that.
Yeah. Totally.
I go ahead.
I was gonna say, not to go too far off topic, but you mentioned biologics earlier, and I always think of Nancy Macy's Insufferable, who when she's not trying to show her well, she's pretending to be the Davy Crockett of the Congressional Women's Bathroom. I remember she was leading one of the UAP UFO hearings, which let's roll out the most retarded guy, David Grush, to head this thing up. And I remember the biologics were part of it, and I remember like what that word and looking it up and it being associated with and then thinking about how they started calling it very deliberately non-human intelligence. So I feel like that was part of his op. Is what I'm going to call it non-human intelligence, and I'm like, oh. So what? It's AI. We're talking about AI.
Yeah,
is what we're talking about. I
much.
knew you guys aren't really going to reveal any aliens or anything,
right?
So this, I always felt that was some sort of weird, and continues to be an AI, some psyop that's directed towards China having better technology than us, AI technology and weapons, that it was so good that we thought it was extraterrestrial or in origin, perhaps, only to find out that we need to expedite our military industrial complex and weapons developing to catch up to our adversaries.
Right. Well, dude, that was an awesome little segue. We got about 20 minutes left, man. The floor is all yours. Whatever you want to cover and get into that we didn't touch on, we can use this time to maybe tie a bow on whatever it is, you got.
I like your is that a
lightsaber
UFO over your left
the
shoulder
UFO
there?
right here.
Yeah,
and it's sucking up Sasquatch.
Yeah. Oh,
the
nice.
Bigfoot. Yeah, that
Nice.
explains it.
I went. Yeah, there it is. I went to. There's a Bigfoot museum in Blue Ridge.
Oh, nice.
And, I went to it about a year ago or so, and I have a friend who did a Bigfoot documentary. Those are the conspiracies I loved doing. Like that's back when being a conspiracy theorist was fun. And, I was always, whenever they bring the X-Files back, I was always excited to see that. I don't know if I'm as excited to see the next incarnation of the X-Files, which apparently is a reboot done by the guy who did Wakanda. And it's
great.
Just call it something different. Why do we have to do all the old stuff and just replace like people with people? Like, who cares? Like, it's going to be more popular if you have the main characters in it, and then you just add some other characters.
Right.
But like, those are the type of conspiracies that I like to get into. The originally, like Art Bell and stuff like that. Like that, I love that.
Are you familiar with Scott Carpenter?
No.
So Scott Carpenter from Tennessee, we had his son on, Travis Carpenter. Anyway, Scott, he dedicated a big, long time of his life to the Bigfoot phenomenon and all that kind of stuff. And, God bless his soul, he passed away a little bit ago, but we were able to have Scott on. We were able to have Travis on, his son. And he started talking about all these studies that they were doing with Bigfoot, and that there's this, I'm going to butcher the name of it. Anyways, there was this study where his dad retrieved actual hair follicles from a supposed Sasquatch, and they ran it through a genome study. They ran it through GenBank. They ran it through another system or whatever. But at the end of the whole study, they found out that the mitochondrial DNA, which you get from the mother, was of human nature, but the nucleotide DNA or whatever it's called, which you get from the father, was unknown. And they ran it through a GenBank system that, pretty much whenever any type of species or piece of bacteria or whatever it is, like even deeper than like the periodic table, it's all in this system, and we keep it records of it so that whenever we find something, we can throw it in there and it'll generate and tell us, what the nature is, who the father was and who the mother was. So at the end of the study, the father was unknown, alien per se.
Yeah.
Right. Just for example, right. Undetected in our database. But this kind of gets into, he was talking on our show, and he's getting into the possibility of like, maybe this phenomenon is fallen angel related or of some sort, because there's that story, the biblical story where, the fallen angels were mating with women at some point. And you see the other pantheons, Greek, Roman, whatever, you see that Zeus came down, mated with women, had demigods, the whole kind of idea of that or whatever. But anyways, it threw a wrench in the whole scientific community, especially the Bigfoot community, which was promoting, I think it was like the evolutionary biology of what these things may be. I forget what the concept is called, but it's just been an animal that's changed over time. It's bipedal, it's humanoid, and this is what it is. But anyways, he was explaining some of the experiences his dad was having, where once he started having a connection with, because he saw a Bigfoot with his eyes, he saw it run right up onto the lake bank that he was on because he was fishing. It beat its chest and it got pissed off because he started to like run away, and it just took off up the woods. And that's what got him into this phenomenon, because he was like, what the heck was that, dude? Started getting into it. And his theory is that he thinks that there is also a spiritual aspect of these things where spiritual, supernatural, right? Whatever you want to call it. It's just the fact that there's maybe the ability to materialize and dematerialize.
Yeah.
It's all kind of wild. We get into some of these conspiracies on the show, and it's a lot of fun. It helps decompress a lot of the
definitely
the real, crazy,
right.
the ones that we're seeing now. But yeah,
satanic cults.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like, why does everything kind of go back to like Satanism for some reason?
Yeah.
Or, cults. It's like, man, that's rough.
Totally.
That's not
dude.
what I want to hear. So
Yeah.
I guess I'll ask you this question, man, and we can maybe wrap it up with this. But so what do you think the alien agenda is all about? And it's funny because this was a question that was on the panel at the Bro Grove.
Yeah. That when David Rush did that, he did his interview with that British guy, and to me, he came off as the most uncredible person. Not credible to me ever. I used to give briefings to the president, and I'm kind of retarded, and it was a little weird, and it was so deliberate, and it was funny because that British guy who interviewed him did an interview about his interview that I watched, and in that interview, he talks about David Grush, and he said that he had a form of autism that makes it hard for him to recognize emotions and understand social situations. And I was
is he saying it about Grush or himself?
He's saying it about Grush. I'm
okay.
like, so the guy who got all the information from the inside sources can't recognize sarcasm or social cues or understand social interactions, and he is the main source of the UFO information. Oh, that's very helpful.
This is the guy who went on Joe Rogan and got like 20 million views, right?
Yeah. And this guy's sitting here, he doesn't understand anything going on in a social situation. I'm like, okay, well, that's seems like relevant information. Who knows what the context or tone, because maybe he does believe what he's saying. I don't know that I'm convinced of that, but he could. He could.
What if he's MK Ultra'd out, dude?
Absolutely. He seems like somebody who could be lied to and be a true believer based on the information about the way his brain works, I guess. And so what struck me about his interview though with that British guy, which he repeated this word, is something about he said there's going to be an ontological shock, and I thought that was interesting. Basically, some sort of shift in reality that something happens that just changes everybody's view of how of what's real, and we have to reorient to that. And not at the time, I was like rewatching X-Files, and it was I guess perfect timing because that same week it was in season 6, and I think it was season 6, and it was the season where Mulder no longer believes. You know, that season where he has that, and he's doing like some sort of like hearing with, he's on stage with all these other guys and they're talking, and Mulder goes off on this ontological shock that you speak of. And I'm like, oh my God. And I went back and watched it, and he did very close to the speech that Mulder gave, or that is either Mulder and this other guy used the term ontological shock, and the dialogue that was used in that interview, it was like they pulled it from this little interaction and cobbled it together and gave it to David Grush. And I was like, first of all, that's weird. It's a weird predictive programming that they're using. The ontological shock, what I believe the UFO agenda is I referenced it a moment ago. I think it's all pointing towards an attempt to escalate international war tensions with China. I think that they would never actually reveal any UFO or extraterrestrial connections that we've first contacts. If there has been first contact, it wouldn't be revealed for the same reason that they want to separate people from their families, because the moment that happens is the moment that they lose their power over society, because this being that seems to be more tangible, these UFOs, obviously they're going to be take power away from governments and stuff like that. They would not want us to know that there's extraterrestrials that could get to Earth, far exceed us in capabilities and technology, because then we would realize that they don't actually have power. The aliens do. And also, I don't know that we would recognize aliens if they were right in front of our face. I think about it like ants. You know, if I were to step into an ant pile along with getting bit a few times, it would be like a natural disaster to the ants. You know, they wouldn't be like, oh, there's that human who's smarter than me who just accidentally stepped in me. And I think that our awareness of it, see, we're under the impression that we are the highest form of intelligence on Earth. Who's to say that ants aren't under that same impression? That you know, they're not aware of the higher intelligence, and that's why I don't know that we would even recognize. It could be right around this room. I have no idea. I think that it's it's obviously for entertainment and stuff. We project them to look in a humanoid way, and maybe they would show up in that format. I have no idea, but I do ultimately never try. I just thought it was so funny when they first. It was. I remember seeing Tucker Carlson talk about it, and then a New York Times article is what he was talking about back in 2017 that said there is a warehouse in Vegas that has a craft that is not of this earth, and that moved in the way they describe it now. It was like the first beginning of this, I think, is a psyop. And that people are getting sick from being around. It was kind of like they were touching on all the conspiracy theories and packaging it together into this article, into this narrative they were doing. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. I would think that would be a national security threat that would be the only thing that was focused on in the news. And yet it took a couple more years for them to even start. That's why it was also nonsensical to me. You're literally telling us that we could be destroyed in a moment, that our best technology can't even come close to this stuff, and you guys are just acting nonchalant about it and having this retard come up here and do a thing about it. I'm like, I'm not buying it. And I think that eventually the turn is going to be, it's our adversaries, and their technology is much, much better. And I think we can relate that to AI. Trump's, we got to win the AI race, the AI arms race against China.
It's like the new moon landing.
Yeah. Right. and it's going to be as real as that one. I think in the end, not saying that I don't believe in it. I've always believed that there's something else out there. I I just think there would have to be, and I don't think that believing in aliens means that you can't also believe in God. I know some people think that those are conflicting. I don't believe that those are conflicting. I'd be like, well,
Right. Well, I always ask like the logical question. I'm like, well, what created? And again, we can call them whatever we want to, right? Just things that are in the heavens. Let's just say, like, well, if they do exist, well, what created them?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, logically, right? You kind of just got to resort to that kind of thinking. And
yeah, I agree.
And it's funny, you make a good point, and I actually like the point that you made, where maybe this agenda is to rise nation against nation in some way, right? Yeah,
it's part of the Great Reset. Is like that. That's the Great Reset was designed, when you go watch the Great Reset videos of the World Economic Forum, to make America take a step back in the world powers, to make China rise up, and to equal that out a little bit more. I don't know how that happens voluntarily, non-kinetic warfare, but I believe that all of this is part of that, to make China rise and us fall back a little bit.
Right on, man. And it's funny because I remember Reagan in front of the United Nations. He was talking about, how could we bring this is just in an opposite view of your point, but how can we bring the world together?
Oh, right.
And he's like, well, what if we were opposed by an extraterrestrial threat to where
Yep.
we had to come together and unionize against this threat. You've got things like Project Bluebeam now, and all this other kind of stuff, and who knows what's psyops, but it's all interesting information. And maybe I think it could do both. And it's always good to like survey the area, not just one space.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know what I'm
I got to consider like alternative explanations for things. I think as conspiracy theorists, especially, I think we can do ourselves a disservice by jumping to the just calling everything a false flag immediately. Even though stuff like that happens, but doing that makes it easy to discredit us. By like, we have to work harder to show our work than the mainstream does, because we're already branded as crazy, and so the way that I try to, when I think about stuff, is like, I try and disprove my initial instinct on a conspiracy theory harder than they ever could, so that to first of all see if I can get a little closer to the truth, and secondly, so that when someone wants to easily dismiss something, I can go, well, wait a minute, why don't you look at the information? That we have to be better than they are, and right so on. I totally agree.
And it's almost like they try to be one step ahead of us, but we try to be that other step in front of them.
Yeah, right.
Well, I tell you what, man, if there's any last message that you would like to share with the audience, an uplifting message, I'd like to try to do that at the end of talking about some of this stuff, because sometimes it can, I don't want to say it can be brain rot, but it can affect some people in certain ways.
Right.
Man.
It can black pill. I'm anti black pill, so I'm with you on the positive message. And I got and my language might be colorful in this. I swear a lot. I warn people, so I apologize. But
you're passionate.
Yes, that's right. So when I've been an actor for years. I've been in a handful of small roles and stuff. And when I first started acting, like the best advice I ever got was, because you're nervous. You go in these casting directors, and all you're thinking about is, will they like me? And that can really actually mess you up, because your job is to do a good audition. And what he told me was, he said, when you go into the auditions, you just have to look at everybody on the other side of that desk as a huge, it's just a bunch of, and you could just whip their ass. And then that way, you can focus on your job, of doing a good audition instead of worrying about what these think about you. And that stuck with me, and it helped. And that's how I think about the people in power. Is they can be easily to see them as a monolithic, that they're all in coordination with each other. They're not. They're humans. At least we think they're humans anyway. Maybe they're lizards too.
Right.
But nevertheless, they're not in cooperation all the time. They fight. They have bigger egos, and thus they're psychopaths. So they're actually probably in more conflict with each other than the conflict that they create. I'm sure they find common goals at times, but the bottom line is they're all a bunch of pussies, and they're not a monolith. And we could whip their ass as long as we recognize that they are trying to collectivize people by stripping away the uniqueness and the abilities that we all have inside of us that we could cultivate to do anything that we wanted. So the propaganda that gets exposed, I referenced this earlier, that's a good thing. So seeing that things aren't the way that we were told is a good thing in many ways, because that takes that barrier that prevents success and capability and maximizing what we have and what we can grow from it. Instead of looking elsewhere, I have to go be all of this to do this. How about, what do I have here inside? And how can I maximize this to help other people and to go do the things that I want to do? And you discover there are not check boxes that you have to. There's just you figuring out what you have, how you can help, how you can grow it, and flourishing your capabilities by looking within and applying it outside, instead of thinking you have to be this illusion that was designed to control you and keep you down. And I think everybody is uniquely great, and I just think a lot of people haven't discovered their greatness yet.
Right on, man. No, dude, thank you for sharing that. And one way I can relate to that as well is just with my job and having the experience I have with my job. It's a part of my leadership role to teach these new guys that come into the job, and it's a bunch of boys trying to do a man's job, and they're always trying to either impress the lieutenant, impress the engineer, or they're trying not to make a mistake. And it's kind of like in the audition, right? You're like, oh, I got to be perfect, right, for these people. But I enjoy that mentality, because in a way, that's how I want them to be on the job. Right. Rather than being scared to make a mistake or to somehow function within this threshold. It's like, dude, that's going to get you killed. And it has gotten people killed, you know, especially just in my profession alone. But, you have to be not only a critical thinker, but you have to have confidence. Right. You got to be confident, man. Like, I can't teach you that. You've got to and I think experience, is what teaches that over time. But
totally,
but I need that now, as soon as you put your boots on day one, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, man. Well, hey,
I'd love to have you on to talk about what you do.
Absolutely, man. That would be a fun show, and that's something to really look forward to, because really, meeting you guys and you guys have been in the game a little longer than me, but I was once a listener, and I got inspired by you guys, to get up and do the dang thing. I have a voice, instead of just talking to my family, which God bless them. But now I
sometimes you podcast just to get away for a little while.
Yeah. But now I'm reaching an audience, and people are enjoying it. And now I'm building relationships with people that not only that that have inspired me to do what I'm doing today with this show, but I'm also, building relationships and friendships, man. And, that's what I like to do with people, having them on the show. And that's really what all I care about. Because at the end of the day, we will have our bias opinions. We will have our own beliefs and all this. And I believe it's everyone's liberty to choose what they want to choose. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I want to be your friend.
Yeah, totally.
At the end of the day, we need to be friends, because I think that's a big part of everything that's going on, is they're trying to tear people apart.
Yeah.
Put us against each other.
And it's like I have so many friends that are like progressives that like I think I think they're they'll repeat talking points to me as though I don't even know if they realize it, but it's like it's just been pumped in their heads. But like I don't get mad at them. Like they're good people, and I don't I think they want people to get mad at each other when they disagree, and I think just don't be a dick and be cool, and be kind, and I think that that's how we defeat
Yeah,
it.
right on, man. And I'd be fun. I'd love to collaborate with you in the future. I have a history of working in research facilities, research
Oh, that's
labs with
cool,
medicine. I was on the front lines, during 2019 and 2020 on the busiest ambulance in the city.
dude.
Saw
We could trade
things.
stories. That's
Oh
so like
yeah, it's
my mom had a rare disease. We were having to go to the hospital because like just for her treatment, we had to be there throughout. We probably have some unique experiences we could trade on another show.
exactly, man. Exactly. Well, brother, for the audience, where can they support you the most and find all your content?
A propaganda report podcast on audio listening apps that you listen on. If you go to X at Freedom Act Radio is my handle, and links in bio for where you can find like youtube.com/Brad Binkley, the prop report, or excuse me, rumble.com/the prop report on Rumble. I don't get censored on Rumble like I often do on YouTube. Locals.com/prop report is one of the subscriber platforms, and patreon.com/propaganda report. Also, that's where Sam Tripoli and Austin and I, we do a show called Whatever This Is. That's our subscriber show. And follow me on X, Instagram, propaganda report. I think those are all the places. I do shows. It does vary, but I try to. I was out a little bit this earlier this summer, but I try to do 3 or 4 shows a week. Usually live stream sometime between 8:30 and 9 Eastern Standard Time.
Right on, man. Shout out to Sam, Tinfoil Hat Podcast. He's got other podcasts too, man. He's been
Yeah, he's got a ton of podcasts.
he likes to work, that guy. It was fun seeing him at Bro Grove, and he's another guy, man. I guess I consider I'm one of his children. How he kind of makes a joke and talks about, but he was another inspiration to kind of get up and do all the, get off the couch and do all this kind of stuff.
Me too, dude.
But dude, it was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun, folks. If you want to support the show, hit that subscribe button, like the show, share it with your friends, drop a comment down below about the things we got into. If you agree, you disagree, whatever. That's the area where we can have a conversation. For all you keyboard warriors, I love it. But and if you want to support us on audio platforms as well, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. While you're there, 5-star reviews only. Drop a comment down below and hit that follow button. But with all that said, folks, we appreciate you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time.